Okay, you're all set to go, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Good evening, members of the public, members of staff, and members of council. Welcome to the regular council meeting of July 5th, 2021. Calling the meeting to order. Moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that the July 5th council meeting of the Township of South Glengarry be opened at 7 p.m. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. I'll now ask you all to stand for the singing of our national anthem. Alrighty, moving on to item number 3, approve of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or amendments? Madam Clerk?
Yes, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. We have an item to be added to other business, that being a discussion regarding community signs. And we have one item that's been requested to be moved from information only into other business, and that would be item 7DB, the draft public art policy.
Okay, thank you very much. Be resolved, or moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Moving on to the approval of the minutes of the June 2021 meeting. Be it resolved that, moved by Martin Lang, second by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that the minutes of the June 21st regular council meeting, including the closed session minutes, be adopted as circulated. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. I should have asked if there are any questions before we did that. I apologize. Were there any questions on the minutes? Okay, again, on the public meeting minutes of June 21st, 2021, were there any questions about those minutes? Seeing none. Moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that the minutes of the June 21st public meeting be adopted as circulated. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to presentations and delegations. I understand we have MNP here to do a presentation of the 2020 financial statements. I'll hand the floor over to you, Mr. McDonald, to introduce MNP, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you. We have, yes, Mr. Ian Murphy, a partner with MNP. He is available to come on. I believe I saw him in the waiting room, and then I will guide the slideshow or the PDF. So Ian, you tell me where you want me to go, and I'll get off the screen and we'll go there. So leave it to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'll do a brief overview of the financial statements. But if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt. We'll start with the independent auditor's report. So this is the standard audit report that we're prepared to issue once council adopts the financial statements. So the independent audit report, the opinion paragraph is at the beginning, and it states, in our opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the municipality at December 31st, 2020, and the results of its operations, changes in net financial assets, and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So a clean audit opinion, and we didn't come across any issues that we need to highlight for council's attention. So if you turn to page 1 of the financial statements, which is the statement of financial position, this gives you the snapshot on December 31st of the assets, liabilities of the municipality. So you'll notice total assets of just under 16 million and total liabilities of just over 4.1 million. Giving your net financial asset of $11,445,000 a year. So this is up about 16% from the year before. So a little bit of an increase over the year before. The non-financial assets at the bottom consist of your capital assets, so your infrastructure, your roads, buildings, and equipment. Inventory and prepaid expense, so that totals just under 51 million, giving you the total accumulated surplus of 62,387,000 for the year. You turn the page to page 2, it's the statement of financial activities. So this is the revenue and expenses for 2020. You notice the middle column is the actual expenses during the year. And you brought in just over 14.5 million in revenues. Expenses are just around 13.3 million. So a little bit under budget. You're about 98% of your budget was spent. You have some other revenue related to capital of 1.6 million, giving you a total PSAB surplus of 2,771,000. So this is where I'll start to jump around a little bit. So if you go to page 18, this breaks down the PSAB surplus from the 2.7 million to the operating surplus, which council drafts their budget on. So you'll notice the adjustments for reserve transactions and capital asset transactions. The total operating surplus for the municipalities ended at 1,428,000, which is broken down between your streetlight surplus, your water and sewer surplus, and then the general surplus of 1,270,000. Turning back to page 7, this gives you a little more detail on the balance of the accumulated surplus. So it shows 3 main areas. You have your surplus and deficits, which consist of your streetlight surplus of 128,000 and your unfunded liability for the future costs related to your landfills of 1,400,000. Then you have your reserves, which are broken down as they were set aside by council. They're totaling just over $13 million this year. So it's an increase from last year from 11,700,000. And finally, you have your equity and capital assets, which is the money that you've spent on your infrastructure and your buildings. That gives you your 62 million in total accumulated surplus. So that's kind of a brief, quick highlight of the financial statements. There are quite a few notes, but I won't go into detail on them. I will highlight that we do have a generic note on page 20 for a significant event related to the COVID-19 pandemic and the impact that it has on the municipality. But there's no adjustments that were required as a result of that to these financial numbers. But we do outline that the municipality has received additional funding from various sources to compensate for some of the lost revenues as a result. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. Ian, I had a couple of questions now. Pardon me, I lost my spot. I was moving back and forth. I guess the liabilities of the uncollected taxes, that's something I think that should be, it's a little concern to me. That's quite a bit of our operating budget. I was wondering what you could recommend for that.
Yeah, that's something that's presented more for information purposes. That's costs that are projected based on landfill studies that are going to be incurred over a 20 to 25 year period. So it's not an immediate impact, but it's something that you've got to accrue as you use up space in the landfills, so that you recognize that you're going to incur these costs at some point in the future. So it's something that you could start putting aside some money in reserves to help fund that. But it's not something that you should be concerned if you don't have that full liability set up as reserves at this point.
Fair enough. I apologize. I think you misunderstood my question. I was asking what your recommendations are for the outstanding taxes that have not been collected. I believe that a liability is at $4 million right now, which is a good chunk of our actual budget.
Yeah, sorry about that. Their taxes receivable $4,350,000. So that's roughly 44% of your levy, of your own levy, 17% of your total. So that's on the high end, or it's probably over the high end. You'd want to be roughly in the 15 to 25% of your levy, probably in that range, right? So you do want to reduce that balance quite a bit. It should be, a realistic target should be somewhere between 2 to 2.5 million, as opposed to the 4.3. So while you do get interest revenue on it, which does help, you never want to get that balance that high, right? So, and another one of the tools that help you collect is the change in the collectability process that the province has changed, going from a 3-year arrear process to a 2 years. So it gives you a little bit more force to go after collection of some of these amounts too.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Mr. McDonald, do you want to speak to that as well?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Warden. We actually have, I think there was some discussion after one of the last meetings, and we have about 250 some properties that would be 2 years or further in arrears, totaling about $3 million. And those are the properties which we can, I guess, target would be perhaps a tough word, but those are the ones we'd focus on. So we have all the mail merge data and financial data to send out those letters. We just have to prepare them. So we'd be able to act pretty quickly on this, because I imagine Councillor Jaworski will say, what's the one thing you can improve on? And this is probably the biggest thing that in discussions with Mr. Murphy that came up, but there may be others.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions of members of council? Councillor Jaworski.
So I'm guessing Mr. McDonald stole my question and that he already provided the answer, but is that correct, Mr. Murphy? Thank you for your report. Is he right? That's the one thing we should work on.
Yeah, that's correct. Overall, the township's in great financial position, right? You've got a lot of reserves. Your reserves are roughly equal to your operating expenditures. So having 13 million in reserves, you've got just over 13 million in operating expenses as a budget. So you're in good position that way. You have no no debt other than the tile drains, which you're contingently liable for, but it's not really your debt. So improvement really is collection of your receivables, and it's something that you never want it to get too far out of hand, right? So it's a matter of you really need to focus on getting that balance down to a more manageable level.
Great, thank you. Councillor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I mean, not to overdo it, but that was the question for myself as well. And just so that I won't dwell on it too long, but just so staff realizes that we are all basically on board, that we'd like to get moving on this and get that number down. It's too high, and it's by what I see, it went up 800,000 in this last year. So it's quite a sizable jump this year.
Okay, Mr. CAO, did you want to jump in, or are you
just for you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, Treasurer McLaughlin and I met last week to talk about an initial strategy, and I guess from his comments that we have a mail merge. So oftentimes maybe some of us get something from Revenue Canada that we owe a bit. Once you get the letter, I'm sure a lot of people pay. So that'll be the initial strategy, and then we'll come up with, so that there's support there through finance with other staff, and we'll get on the track with this.
Thank you very much. Councillor McDowell, did you have a question? I didn't want to make sure. No, you're good. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, Mr. CAO.
Yeah, just through you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to thank Mr. McDonald and the management staff. It was a COVID year, and there was a lot going on, and there's a lot of things going on. And what Mr. Murphy highlights is, you know, when we're almost $1.3 million underspent with a capital budget, operations budget, and we have projects in the hopper that we probably can direct some of this towards, and there's also a tax decrease for constituents. I think it's something to celebrate, and I want to thank the management staff led by Mr. McLaughlin.
Thank you very much.
McLaughlin, Mr. McDonald. Sorry, Lachlan.
No, I certainly concur with that. And we were, fortunately for us, South Glengarry was one of the lucky townships that our costs actually went down. So we're very thankful for that. And again, echo what CAO Mills said. Thank you to staff. Thank you for your presentation tonight, Mr. Murphy. I think you got off easy, and that's in part to the good work that our staff is doing. So thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Thank you. Okay, moving on to new business. Staff report 7A, appoint marriage license issuer. Mrs. Compo.
Hi, Council. Good evening, and through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So the intent of the report and bylaw before you is almost just a housekeeping item, but also an additional appointment. So as most of you are likely aware, the township offers marriage solemnization, also known as officiant services. We also issue marriage licenses that are valid for the province of Ontario. And in order to do so, we have to have a bylaw appointing marriage license issuers outside of myself as the clerk, as well as to appoint those officiants. So in May, Crystal Lebrun was appointed as our deputy clerk. So in preparing a report and bylaw to appoint Crystal, I did notice that there were just a few items in our previous bylaw that were a little out of date in terms of the legislation that it referenced. So I just refreshed the whole bylaw so that it's all up to date. And so the bylaw before you appoints Ms. Lebrun to issue marriage licenses, as well as our HR advisor, Cindy DeVries, who has been providing that service for many years now, longer than I have. And otherwise, there's no changes.
Perfect. She's following in her mom's footsteps. I think Marilyn was our first clerk that did that. So that's really exciting.
And I still get requests for Marilyn to this day to officiate weddings, so she did a good job.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so I have a bylaw before me, moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that staff report 90-2021 be received. That bylaw 55-21 being a bylaw to authorize the civil marriage solemnization service and issuance of marriage license in the township of South Glengarry be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 5th day of July. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next staff report. 91-2021. Ms. Compo again.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. As council is aware, at the beginning of the council term, we appoint members to all of our various committees, boards, and commissions, and members of council are typically appointed to those committees as well. Most of them require 1 to 2 council representatives to be on them. So that said, the intent of the report before you tonight is to appoint alternate council members to fill vacancies on the various boards and committees that Mayor Prevost was appointed as a member on for the duration of the leave of absence. The only committee that we won't be required to appoint an alternate is the Committee of Adjustment and Property Standards Committee. As you know, that's a committee that's comprised of all the members of council. So you can continue as a 4-member committee, just as we are with regular council meetings. So with that said, the resolution before you is recommending to appoint Councillor Jaworski to sit as a member on the Glengarry Nor'Westers Loyalist Museum Board, Deputy Mayor Warden as a member to the RRCA board, and Councillor McDonnell to the Cornwall Regional Airport Commission.
Okay, thank you very much for the report. Are there any questions of members of council? Seeing none, moved by Martin Lang, second by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that staff report 91-2021 be received and that for the duration of the leave of absence of Mayor Frank Prevost, that Councillor Stephanie Jaworski be appointed as alternate member of the Glengarry Nor'Westers and Loyalist Museum Board, that Deputy Mayor Lyle Warden be appointed as an alternate member of the Raisin Region Conservation Authority Board, and that Councillor Sam McDonnell be appointed as an alternate member of the Cornwall Regional Airport Commission. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much for your report, Ms. Compo. Moving on to staff report 92-2021, Rungao Investments Canada Limited zoning bylaw amendment. Ms. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So this has been a very lengthy file and a very complex file. We began this file a little over a year ago. So I would like to take some time to just highlight some areas in my report before we get into a discussion. So the subject property is known as 20170 County Road 2. Very familiar to many of us in South Glengarry, currently as the location of the Smoking Bull restaurant and formerly as Lancaster Inn. This subject property is approximately 9.8 hectares in size, or 21 acres. It fronts directly onto the St. Lawrence River, as well as onto County Road 2. And the northern portion of the subject property is currently zoned commercial and developed. As I mentioned, it's the location of the Smoking Bull. It's serviced by a private septic system and a well. And the southern portion of the property is comprised of a dug canal that serves a passive marina with several boat slips, and it also contains a gravel access driveway, manicured lawn with some vegetation to the south, and a natural area in the southwestern boundary. So there's a few interesting things I'd like to point out about this property. On May 1st, 2018, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry reevaluated the wetland and informed the property owner that the wetland boundary had been adjusted to reduce the wetland of approximately 2.9 acres in size, which means that that area of the property will no longer be zoned or designated as provincially significant wetland. The new and the provincially significant wetland is known as a PSW, so I'm going to use that terminology from here on in. The new PSW boundary now follows the area of the property that has manicured lawn with a gravel access driveway. And you'll see in my report that I do provide aerial photos. So the purpose of this amendment was to rezone a portion of the subject property from provincially significant wetland and floodplain holding to provincially significant wetland, open space exception 3, and floodplain holding. And the purpose of the open space exception 3 zone was to permit the use of a campground with the proposal of a maximum of 25 individual camping lots. The northern portion of the subject property is not part of the rezoning, and it will remain in the highway commercial zone. And again, just to reiterate, the portion of the PSW that's changing is following the Ministry of Natural Resources of wetland evaluation. Also, part of this proposed development, there's no permanent buildings or structures that are being proposed. And following several meetings with the property owners and site visits, it's been determined that no site alteration is required to accommodate the proposed development. It is just intended to provide hydro and water services to each camping lot. And after review and discussions with the developer, it was determined that this could be easily installed or completed without changing the grade of the subject property. It could be a matter of digging a small trench, very shallow and not very wide in depth, simply to accommodate a conduit to put those services in place. So in order to deem the zoning amendment application complete, a lot of discussion happened before the application was even filed. There was pre-consultation meetings that had occurred with the Raisin Region Conservation Authority. They occurred with the applicant's planning firm, as well as the environmental firm. And it wasn't until we received an application, and what I did was I forwarded that application to the Raisin Region Conservation Authority for guidance to determine if we can deem the application complete. The reason why that guidance was required is because nobody on South Glengarry staff is qualified to review environmental reports. I'm not a biologist by profession, and so we really do rely on the Raisin Region Conservation Authority for this service. We then received preliminary comments from the Raisin Region Conservation Authority that indicated we could deem the application complete and move forward with the process. The complete package of the application include what was called an environmental impact study, and that study was completed by Beacon Environmental. In the first review completed by the Raisin Region Conservation Authority, it was determined that additional information was required. We then proceeded to go through the public meeting process, and an addendum to the environmental impact study was provided in the fall of 2020 and reviewed by the Raisin Region Conservation Authority. This resulted in additional information and questions that resulted in an addendum number 2. And you'll see in my staff report that following the review of addendum number 2 on February 12th, 2021, the Conservation Authority provided their final comments, and they did not object to the proposed rezoning of the development. As I mentioned, this has been a complex file. It's been a complex file due to the location, the proximity to the PSW, and because of that, South Glengarry chose to hire a company to complete a peer review of the process. So I just want to speak about that peer review for a few minutes, if you don't mind. So again, the purpose of the peer review was really to make sure that we were not missing anything through the whole process. As I mentioned, I'm not a qualified biologist or an environmentalist. And so I relied heavily on that peer review to make sure that the information that was prepared by Beacon Environmental, being the EIS and the addendums, as well as the review of the RCA, that we weren't missing anything, that we really were leading towards a recommendation for this to be approved. It was brought to my attention that the peer reviewer did have to do research, had to read all the documents comprehensively, found that the information was there, but did have to do a little bit of research or digging to make sure that all the information that needed to be part of the process or part of the review was actually there. And one of the recommendations that was made to me was that we asked them to complete a summarizing letter of all of the documents, as well as to encourage them to start the Ministry of Environment and Conservation and Parks, so MEC or Conservation, I got to get this right, Ministry of Environment, Parks and Conservation, and this letter to start that process to make sure that they were able to receive a permit from them. And the purpose of the permit is because there are species at risk in the area. So that was great that we had that advice from the peer reviewer, and the applicant did choose to start that process. So you'll see in my report, I summarize all of this, and I did make the comment that there are 2 species at risk that have been specifically identified, one known as the least bittern, which is a bird, and the other one is a Blanding's turtle. You will also see in my report that the ministry did not object to the zoning amendment moving forward. And the reason for that is because the province does not require a species at risk site assessment for a zoning bylaw amendment process. It's not required at this stage of the development. So we felt that in order to move forward to determine if this property can actually have a campground on site, then it's best to recommend that the zoning amendment be approved. That being said, if it does move forward, if it is approved this evening, there are going to be 2 other components that this process or this proposed campground will be subject to. And one will be site plan control. The other one will be obtaining a permit for species at risk, which will result in a review of the species at risk site assessment, it's called. Furthermore, in reviewing the file, we have to review the file with the provincial policy statement to make sure that any decision that's being proposed is consistent with the provincial policy statement. You're going to see that I highlighted several sections of the provincial policy statement that we felt that it applies and that it could be consistent with the PPS if council does choose to approve it this evening. You're also going to see that I highlight many sections of the county official plan. The United Counties official plan is also South Glengarry's official plan. And so we can also confirm that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment does conform to the official plan. I'm now going to speak to the public consultation. So as I mentioned, this file has been a lengthy file. Our public meeting was held on August 4th, 2020. We had several members of the public participate in the public meeting, and we had many members of the public that provided written comments in regards to the proposed amendment. In fact, I have 68 formal written comments that have come through the public record, and they've been referenced in the staff report, and they're also attached to the staff report. Very difficult to summarize all of these written comments, so it was important for council to review these comments on their own. And it's difficult because some of the comments are very passionate, very personal, lots of very good advice and knowledgeable. But for myself, I found that I had to really rely on the studies that were prepared by professionals to be able to determine what my recommendation would be to council. So as I mentioned, it's been a lengthy process. So we have been receiving comments throughout the entire process and including them and considering them, including a peer review that was commissioned by a resident in our community. And that peer review was completed. It was completed in advance. Different addendums were completed as well as the final review of the RSCA. However, that peer review was considered. So in closing, I just want to repeat that if this application is approved this evening, there's no guarantee that the campground will be constructed. The purpose of the zoning amendment is to set the principle of development. If it's approved, it means that they can proceed with the next step of the process. And the next step of the process will be site plan control. Site plan control controls the layout and the layout and how that property is going to be used. So for example, we would be working with the developer that's going to show the exact locations of each campground or campsite lot, as well as if they're successful in receiving a permit from MECP, that permit might have mitigation requirements to protect different species at risk. And those requirements would also be incorporated in the site plan control. At this point, it's premature for me to assume what those requirements would be, but I assure you that if there are requirements, they have to be incorporated for the campground to move forward. So at this point, in conclusion, if it's approved, the zoning amendment would change the subject property from highway commercial, provincially significant wetland, and floodplain holding to highway commercial, provincially significant wetland, floodplain holding, and open space exception 3 zone, with the ability to accommodate a maximum of a 25 lot camping ground and to prohibit any permanent structures within that open space exception 3 zone. So I look forward to answering any questions of council to the best of my ability. And thank you for allowing me that time to present this.
No problem at all, Ms. Haley. Thank you very much for your presentation. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor Warden. Thank you, Ms. Haley, for your report. I'd like to make a motion to defer this report. The reason being is I'd incorrectly assumed that all the professional reports that were part of this file, that they would have been included in the staff report that was publicly available. But because I was ill recently, I didn't realize those documents weren't there until yesterday when I made the request, and so I only received them today. So in short, I haven't had a chance to read them through. And although I don't doubt at all that Ms. Haley's summary is accurate, I do feel that that's my duty to understand more than just the summary. And in particular, when residents are contacting me about, very specific details, I feel like I need to be familiar enough with the details of the file to have a fulsome conversation with them about their concerns. So that's the reason why I'm asking for a motion to defer this till the next meeting. I'm not asking for a lengthy deferral.
Okay. Ms. Compo, I believe you have one prepared.
Yes, so if there's a seconder for that motion, I do have one prepared to defer based on wanting to review the information further. So if there's a seconder, I can read that resolution, and then you can put it to a vote, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Is there a seconder for that motion?
I will second it to put it on the floor. I'm not speaking for or against the motion at this point. I'd like to hear what everyone else has to say, but I will second it to put it on the floor and see where we go from here.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lang. So I'll let Ms. Compo read the motion as she has it written, and we'll go into a discussion.
Okay, so the resolution would be moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that staff report 92-2021 be received, and that council hereby defers the zoning amendment application for the property legally described as south part of Lot H, Concession 1, in the geographic township of Charlottenburg, now in the township of South Glengarry, County of Glengarry, in order to provide for additional time to review the information as presented.
Okay, we'll go into discussion, and then we'll do a vote on the deferral. Is there any discussion on the deferral of this staff report? Seeing none, Councillor Lang.
Okay, I thought there would be lots of discussion, but anyway.
This is just for the deferral. This isn't.
Yeah, I realize that. I realize that. I can see where Councillor Jaworski's coming from. I mean, there was a lot of background information that was provided today, and I did have time to read it all and go through it all. But I basically had to take the day off, that mixed with that reading, as well as phone calls today, most of them concerning this subject. It was a rather full day. And so I can understand where Councillor Dworsky's coming from, although I can't say that myself that I need more time. I have been able to get through it. So I don't know where you other two gentlemen stand, but I'd like to hear your opinions.
Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'm of the, I'm in the same boat as you, Councillor Lang. I was fortunate enough to have the day off that I could go through that information, and as well between phone calls, and it was very time consuming, but we got through it. But yeah, I at this point I am ready to make a decision. I personally feel I can do it tonight. I won't need any additional time.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor McDonnell. Same here. I reviewed the additional information and it did help solidify my decision. So I'll ask for all those in favor of the motion to defer. Motion is defeated. Thank you very much. So
Thank you for the opportunity to bring it forward. And
not
thank
a
you,
problem at all,
Lang, for
Councillor
seconding it.
Jaworski. Thank you. Are there any discussions on the staff report at hand? Any questions? Councillor Lang?
I guess somebody has to start, and I'd like to thank Mrs. Haley for the report, for the thorough review tonight. Going through, it has been long and lengthy, and I know all of us have been bombarded with opinions and lots of stuff for us to look at and go through and to read and to take into consideration. Not you know, likely this is likely the hardest thing that that I've had to deal with so far in this term of council. I think it's an important issue, but it's a very passionate issue to many people, many of our residents. And so having gone through everything that I could possibly read on it, and reading all 60 some letters, many of them I'd seen before the staff report, because many of them were sent to us directly as well. It was a lot to go through and a lot to, but I think for me, what it comes down to is that I'm going to have to listen to the experts, the people they're doing the environmental, reports, the Conservation Authority, this sort of thing. I'm having a hard time finding a reason that if I had to stand up and defend a decision not to vote for this, that I could point to something specific that was said in one of these reports, or something specific that I know that would say this is bad for a bad decision to make. So in that light, I'm going to speak in favor of voting for this. If there is more to come, I feel, and I'm confident that it will be caught in the site plan control and the further steps that they have to go through with the ministries. So I think the property was floodplain, and it now has to be rezoned to something. And I think this is likely the least intrusive thing that we can do at this point. So I'm speaking in favor of it, although I do appreciate all the people that have contacted me, all the people that have written letters rather, and their input and their passion in this. I mean, I'm not doing this lightly. It's a tough decision to make, but I think I need to make this decision, and I appreciate the time and effort they've put into it. And I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor McDonnell.
To you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'd like to echo some of the comments made by Councillor Lang. The effort that has gone into giving council members all the information that we would need to make this decision, both from the developer as well as especially from the groups associated with the Cooper's Marsh and with the wetland. At the end of the day, I guess we have a duty to the residents of South Glengarry to do what we feel is right for the municipality and for the taxpayers. And I guess hand in hand with that, we have obligations that we have to uphold with the province in these positions as well. So I'm going to speak in favor of it as well. I do appreciate all the information and all the phone calls and emails I've gotten, and I think we've all spent a lot of time on the phone today, especially. It's definitely the hardest decision I've had to make on council. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jaworski, did you want to say something?
Yes, please. Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor Warden. So yes, thank you very much, Ms. Haley, for all the time and effort and care that you've put towards putting through this application. It's been a lengthy process, and I know that you've been very, very diligent in working on it. So thank you for that. And I do really respect and appreciate what my co-councilors have said in terms of how they are taking care of this decision and how it is a difficult decision. But I guess I will fall on the other side of this issue, and I'll just give a little bit of explanation as to why. So, it's an application for a zoning change that's going to allow a new commercial use basically on this property. And it's, commercial use that we really wouldn't have envisioned there until very recently with the change of the PSW boundaries. And, I recognize the applicants put a lot of effort into this application, and it is a complete application. I think our role is also to consider what's the public benefit to the township as a whole with this zoning change and this new use. And so there are some benefits. I do recognize there'll be a small tax, potentially, if it could go through, there's a small tax revenue increase from the small campground, and there will be, 25 sites potentially that would bring some new business to the area, but to me, these are relatively small. On the other side of the issue, and this is the topic that I've received the most feedback from the members of the public on any issue in my term of council, and I won't repeat all the reasons why residents value and want to protect the Cooper Marsh Conservation Area, in particular the East Marsh and the surrounding wetlands. So I invite anyone to read through the lengthy public submissions that we've received on why residents want us to be very vigilant as a township in protecting the wetlands. So it's my opinion that the majority of our residents don't support this expansion of commercial use in that area. And, many feel that it'll have a negative impact on the marsh, in particular the East Marsh. I'll acknowledge that in the public statements, there is some feedback that seems to indicate there's some misunderstanding on what is being proposed. So I'm going to put those aside, those comments that are misunderstanding what is happening. But even without putting those aside, I still feel that a majority of our residents who live throughout South Glengarry, who understand what is being applied for here, they are opposed to this new use. And I think their opposition is reasonable. I don't think it's a case of NIMBYism. I don't think it's a case of not in my backyard. And although I can't say that I've read through all the professional reports. I haven't, but I haven't seen anything that says there'll be no impact from this proposed project. In fact, there's a recognition that there is going to be impact, and there's a significant mitigation features that are envisioned to bring that down to low impact. So for those reasons, I don't support the zoning application.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jaworski. There's been a lot of discussion, and again, I do want to thank you as well, Ms. Haley, for the countless hours that you've put into this file. At the end of the day, the applicant submitted a complete application, submitted the requirements that were put forward by the Coopers or by the Raisin Region Conservation Authority. They are in support of this application. Therefore, I will be supporting it as well. Is there any other discussion before we go to a vote? And I do also want to say one more thing. This has been a very passionate file. We as elected officials are tasked, we're in a very difficult position. There's a lot of public support for this not to go through, but there's also policy and procedure that has been followed through, and they've done everything that they've been asked for. So we're tasked with a very difficult decision, and I guess that's what we signed up for. So with that being said, are there any other comments? Seeing none, I'm going to read the lengthy resolution. Moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that staff report 92-2021 be received, and that bylaw 56-2021 be a bylaw to amend bylaw 38-09, a comprehensive zoning bylaw for the Township of South Glengarry to rezone the property legally described as south part of Lot H, Concession 1 in the geographic Township of Schlottenburg, now in the Township of South Glengarry, County of Glengarry, also known as 20170 County Road 2, from Highway Commercial CH, Provincially Significant Wetland PSW, and Floodplain Holding FP-H to Highway Commercial HC, Provincially Significant Wetland PSW, Open Space Exception 3 OS-3, and Floodplain Holding FP-H to permit the use of a campground with a maximum of 25 camping lots and to prohibit any permanent structures with the open space exception, within the open space exception. 3 zone be read there. Exception 3 zone, sorry, be read a first, second, and third time passed, signed, and sealed in the open council this 5th day of July 2021. The Council of the Township of South Glengarry confirms that the public comments were received on this application, were carefully reviewed and considered, but did not result in the need to refuse this zoning amendment application. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. That was a tough one. Moving on to the next staff report. If you'll give me a second. I need to get through a few pages. Okay, 7D, Site Plan Control Agreement Addendum, Midland Resource Recovery, Ms. Haley.
Sorry, I forgot I was on mute. Okay, so thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. This property is located in part of lots D and E Concession 1 in the geographic Township of Charlottenburg, now in South Glengarry, and it's also known as 20007 County Road 2. This property is known as Midland Resource Recovery, and it was constructed several years ago as a new business in our community. The original structure was approximately 464.5 square meters in size. And in 2020, an addendum was approved to the original site plan control, allowing for an addition of 278.8 square meters in size. We now have another addendum before us this evening. And the purpose of the addendum to the site plan this evening is to accommodate a newly constructed or proposed constructed accessory shed that's going to be approximately 33.45 square meters in size, and also to increase the parking spaces and to add a new internal road on the subject property to access the newly created parking spaces. The property is approximately 9 acres in size, and it's zoned highway commercial with some floodplain holding kind of at the rear surrounding the back of the parcel of property. In order to complete an amendment to the site plan, I was required to circulate the proposed amendment to our building department, our fire chief, as well as the United Counties of SD&G Transportation Department. And nobody had, as also the Raisin Region Conservation Authority, simply because of the floodplain on the property. And no one had any concerns or objections to moving forward and approving the site plan. However, that now resulted then in the agreement to be amended. So you'll see attached to the staff report, the addendum that's been prepared is quite simple. It simply references the updated or the revised document that will be included in the original site plan control approval. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Haley. Would the local, would landowners who own within a certain proximity, would they have been notified as well for this?
No, so site plan control is a little bit different, and especially when we're doing an addendum. So no, we notify the commenting agencies only, and site plan control, the only people or person that could appeal the site plan control approval is the actual applicant.
Okay,
So it's a different process, and that's just because the principle of development has been established.
thank you very much. Very happy to have these guys expanding again. Are there any questions or comments of members of council? Seeing none, moved by Martin Lang, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that staff report 93-2021 be received, and that bylaw 57-2021 being an addendum to the site plan control agreement for the property legally described as part of lots D and E concession 1, being part 1 on reference plan number 14R-253 in the geographic township of Charlottenburg, now in the township of South Glengarry, county of Glengarry, Ontario, also known as 20007, County Road 2, be read first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Open council this 5th day of July 2021, and furthermore that the deputy mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the site control agreement. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Gotta go through a couple pages here. Moving on to staff report 94-2021, Employment District Land, South Lancaster. Ms. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I feel like I have brought this topic to council. I can't recall if this is the 4th or 5th time, and I'm sure you know it all off by heart. However, we're following a process, and the next step in this process is to make a recommendation to the United Counties to approve. But before we get to that point, I will give a little bit of a background. So just to remind members of the public and council that a majority of our commercial properties located in the South Lancaster area were designated or are designated employment district. An employment district designation really implies that you're creating jobs, more industrial type uses, not as compatible to residential uses as a commercial district would be, and also does not allow for any residential development in the employment district. We felt that it was in the best interest of South Glengarry to change this district to a commercial district that would still allow all those commercial businesses to remain. Their zoning will not change, but it'll also allow for mixed-use residential to be suggested or created subject to zoning changes if required. As you're aware, we did receive a request from a member of the public or a property owner asking council to consider their property. That property is highlighted in the first portion of my staff report. And that's because potentially that property could be developed with a mixed use commercial and residential units on top sometime in the future. At that time, we decided to incorporate all of the properties in South Lancaster, and council supported that and directed me to proceed with the official plan amendment process. We're now almost at the end stage of the official plan amendment process. Following our public meeting on June 21st, we did not receive any comments from the public. In fact, discussions that I've had with the business owners and members of the public in general, because we've received no formal comments, those discussions have been very positive, and people are looking forward to that positive change in the South Lancaster area, creating uses that are much more compatible to our existing residential uses, as well as the proposed, if the Karen View subdivision continues to move forward in being developed. So that being said, the purpose of the resolution this evening is to recommend the United Counties to approve the official plan amendment. The reason why we're recommending the United Counties to do this is because the United Counties is the approval authority for all official plan amendments to the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry official plan, which is also our official plan. So thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Haley, have you had any comments from Mr. Young on this file? He's new to the counties, but he has an extensive, he knows what he's doing in regards to planning. I was just wondering if he has had any comments towards you or anything in regards to this file.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. When Mr. Young came on board, we met fairly early on in his, I think it was the end of his first week, to review many files in South Glengarry, and was very much supportive of this file, felt that it was a good change if it was to be approved. And also when the county deemed it complete, it was done so by Mr. Young, and he also communicated that to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. So no, we're all on the same page, and we're hoping that County Council will approve it.
Wonderful. Okay, are there any questions of council? I don't see Councillor McDonnell. So I will, Councillor McDonnell,
Just getting a change of scenery. I was starting to run into some rain.
no problem. Do you have any questions on the staff report at hand?
No, I've had you in my ear the whole time, and Ms. Haley did a fine job with this one.
Okay, thank you. Moved by
Thank
Stephanie Jaworski, second by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that staff report 94-2021 be received and that the council of the Township of South Glengarry recommends to the United Counties of SDNG to approve the proposed official plan amendment to redesignate the identified lands located in South Lancaster from employment district to commercial district. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Moving on to staff report 95-2021, VO's Ladywear CIP application. Ms. Baggs.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This evening, I would like to present a few different reports from our most recent CPAC meeting. The first one is VO's Ladies Wear. So most of you are familiar with where they are located, right before the tracks in Green Valley. They've been around for a very long time. They were actually part of our business awards when we were allowed to have them a couple of years ago. They've applied for the building improvement grant to enhance the facade of their building on all visible sides of the road. So they border 3 different roads: Station Street, County Road 34, and I believe Maynard Street. And so the committee reviewed the application and they recommended it to council in the amount of just over $5,500.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Baggs. Are there any questions of members of council? Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through Deputy Mayor Warden. I think it's just great. I think this is the first time we've had an applicant from Green Valley, is it not?
I think so.
Yeah.
So I want to say that that's great. I'm glad to see that it's expanding, and that's a great business up in Green Valley. My favorite jacket is from there. One thing that I wanted to mention is maybe just to keep in mind for the future is, you know, an application like that, like we have other applications like that that border up against the railway tracks, and, you know, to make sure that that's when we do our next round of reviewing our process, to always make sure that, you know, the side, like that we can look at the building, also including the side that includes the railway tracks, which I guess is the case in this case, but also going forward. There's other businesses I can think of in Lancaster that have a serious frontage on the railway tracks where it would be great that they can also apply the CIP funding to as well.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments? Seeing none. Moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that staff report 95-2021 be received and that the bylaw 58-2021 being a bylaw to enter into a CIP agreement with Emil VO Enterprise Inc., VO Ladies Wear, be read first, second, and third time passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 5th day of July 2021. Furthermore, that the deputy mayor and clerk be authorized to sign all relevant documents. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next one, Ms. Baggs. I have a few pages to scroll down, so I hope you're there.
Yes.
96. Thank you.
Okay, so the next application that the CPAC reviewed, and CPAC meaning the Community Improvement Advisory Committee, was Joe's Barbershop. They are located in Glen Walter. The owner and barber is Christian Burgon. Many of the community, I'm sure, knows him. He's very active in Glen Walter, especially for the park. His application was, again, specific to the facade, changing out the windows, which had his dad's logo on them. So he changed those and made them more energy efficient, and also upgraded the doors. This one in particular, the timing with COVID and everything was a little tricky. So the committee did review as a special exception and recommended the application be passed by council for the amount of just over $1,600.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any, Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. No, I wanted to say that, yeah, I support what how the committee approached this one. You know, the year with COVID has been very challenging in terms of getting contracts and materials and whatnot. So I understand that, you know, there was some tricky timing that had to be dealt with. So I think the committee made the right choice.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of members of council? Seeing none, moved by Martin Lang, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that staff report 96-2021 be received, and that bylaw 59-2021 being a bylaw to enter into a CIP agreement with Jill's Barber Shop, Christian Borgo, My Barber, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed, and open council this 5th day of July 2021. And furthermore, that the deputy mayor and clerk be authorized to sign all relevant documents. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next staff report. Staff report. I'm getting there. 97-2021. Again, Ms. Baggs.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So this report, council may be familiar with it. It came to council back in February requesting new signage on the front of their newly purchased location in Lancaster. So if you got a picture where the old gym was, this is the same location. It matches their branding perfectly, so it's really good thing. They requested through the committee, and they had their design, and that's what they suggested. And you could see in the report the graphic which was on the building. That's what the committee reviewed, and that's what they approved. Unfortunately, when the installer came out to actually hang the sign, they realized that it would be the infrastructure isn't sufficient to be able to hold the signage properly, so it would be a hazard. So they went back to the drawing board and kind of reevaluated. They still wanted signage up on that portion of the building. So that's what they did. They just made it smaller and safe. And then in order to still get his branding and his store name in front of the building, they also made a new sign at the road. So that is the part that's before council this evening. Originally, council approved the full amount for signage under the community improvement plan, which was $2,000. If the portion that they did on top, that was the original portion, that would have been the $2,000. Now it's about half that amount. But if they include the new sign at the front by the road, then it's the full $2,000. So it's mainly just an update on the agreement if council approves.
Okay, thank you very much for your report, Ms. Baggs. Councillor McDonnell, you had your hand up.
Yes, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Thank you again, Ms. Baggs, for all your hard work on these. I know as the chair for the CIP committee, it was definitely some tough decisions we had to make in that last meeting and last public meeting. At this point, with this application, I think the way things have been going is, as we cited before with Mr. Borgon's application, it's COVID's been tough, I think, on all businesses, and I think there's probably there is a recommendation here to only support the $900, and I think I'd like to see maybe if council would be willing, or if there's enough support behind the table, to defer or to defeat the motion on the table. And I think the clerk may be able to throw a resolution together to approve the full 2,000. I think it would go a long ways to helping a business that's made significant investments, I think, in the last little while. And I think in keeping with I think how everybody's been responding to COVID, and with some of the things we've had come across our plate. Exceptions are nice in a time of crisis, and maybe a little bit of pressure was put on him when he realized his great new idea was not going to quite go as planned. I think he did it for the right reasons, but maybe wasn't fully aware of what the consequences could have been in changing that design.
Okay, thank you very
I
much.
don't know if there's
Councillor
enough
Mac.
support here.
Thank you very much.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, I'd like to chime in too a little bit. Unfortunately I missed this meeting as I had obligations that popped up, and I had to deal with a real estate transaction. That being said, the spirit of what went on was there, and the business owner, tried the best that they could. And unfortunately, the committee was following their mandate, but I think council being the final approval, I'd like to see us go to bat for this small business and approve the original request. Are there any other comments? Councillor Lang, then Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and through you. I will back you guys up on that. And looking, at the pictures and having seen the building numerous times, I think they have definitely, improved the look of things, and then are trying to make a go of it. And we were able to kind of accommodate the last request, and I think we should do this one as well. I think I think council has maybe a little bit of leeway that maybe the committee doesn't have, and I'd like to use that leeway.
Thank you, Councillor Jaworski.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor Warden. Yeah, I agree that the committee, followed their mandate and what happened here, and I appreciate the explanation of what happened, because I was wondering, like in this case, why the signage looked different than what we'd originally seen. But I think, like in this case, like common sense, considering again COVID, et cetera, lots of confusion that's happened in the last, issues with this sort of thing, and it sounds like in the end, the structural integrity just wouldn't have permitted what he had suggested originally. I think this makes sense. I just hope that, going forward, that, now as things are getting back to normal, that, we just make sure that all our applicants really understand that, once they set an agreement with council, that they should wait to make, like, they should come back to us to make a change to that agreement before they just go ahead and do it.
Thank you very much, Councillor McDonnell. Subsequent.
Just through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I just wanted to commend the committee on making these decisions. They are an advisory council, or a committee, but they are a highly valued one at that. And there was a lot of discussion and discussion on these three applications, and I think the committee did an excellent job in following their mandate. And just this application, as I say, I think it would mean a lot to a small business owner who's invested a lot in the township in the last year, even given the difficult circumstances. It would mean a lot to them, and if we can make it happen, it'd be nice too.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other comments, moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Sam McDonnell, be it resolved that pursuant to the recommendation of the Community Improvement Plan Advisory Committee, that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry does not approve the additional signage installed at the Decor Stop Outdoor Center located at 155 Military Road North that falls outside of the originally approved application. All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? Motion is defeated. Ms. Campo, I'm understanding that you have a resolution to read. Can we get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor McDonnell, second by Councillor Lang.
Thank you. So moved by Sam McDonnell, seconded by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the additional signage installed at Deco Stop Outdoor Center located at 155 Military Road North that falls outside the originally approved application, and furthermore, that administration be authorized to issue the approved funds pursuant to the approved CIP agreement.
All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next one, staff report 98-2021. Mr. LeBlanc.
Thank you. Good evening, council, and through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Tonight, procurement 09-2021, being a tender for the supply of a truck or a tandem plow truck complete with a box and plow harness, was issued with the closing date of June 16th, 2021. There were 3 submissions received. Rush Truck Centers of Canada, Ottawa East, issued a tender in the amount of $258,520.88 plus HST. Cornwall Freightliner with ELP Inc. issued a tender amount of $259,045.00 plus HST. And Cornwall Freightliner with Gincor Works issued a tender at $262,405.00 plus HST. So Rush Truck Centers of Canada, Ottawa East is the lowest bidder, but did not supply a delivery date in the tender process. Cornwall Freightliner, ELP, and Cornwall Freightliner Gincor Works submitted bids with a delivery date of May 2022. The tender document issued identifies March 31st, 2022 as the preferred delivery date. Due to manufacturer supply shortages, truck dealers were not able to meet this delivery date and are backed up to 12 months behind on their current orders. Administration is recommending that the procurement award to Cornwall Freightliner ELP per their submission of $259,045.00 plus HST and a delivery date of May 2022. The purchase sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry, I thought you were finished. My apologies.
The purchase of the tandem truck will be drawn from the roads department and equipment reserves as authorized by council resolution at the May 3rd, 2021 regular council meeting. I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. LeBlanc. This is good. This is good news. It's nice to see that all 3 quotes come in very, very close. The question I have for you, Mr. LeBlanc, Gincor Works versus ELP Inc. Is that a type of box? Is that a type of, are those companies the suppliers of everything else, a harness?
That's correct, Mr. Deputy Mayor. ELP is a supplier for snowplow equipment, and so is Gincor Works, 2 separate companies.
Have we dealt with either one of them before?
Yes, we have.
Okay, perfect. Questions of members of council? Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor Warden. Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc, for the report. So just so I understand, you're going with the one that you're proposing is because that one is giving us the closest, most and definitive delivery date, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions of members of council? Seeing none, moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Martin Lang. Be resolved that staff report 98-2021 be received and that the council of the Township of South Glengarry award procurement number 09-2021 for the purchase of a tandem truck complete with box and plow harness to Cornwall Freightliner ELP Inc. as per their submission of $259,045.00 plus HST, and furthermore that the deputy mayor and clerk be authorized to sign any relevant documents. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. A nice addition to the fleet. And 99 staff report 99-2021, Mr. LeBlanc.
So thank you once again, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Procurement 10-2021 being a tender for the supply of a single axle 4x4 truck complete with box and plow harness was issued with a closing date of June 16th, 2021. There were 2 submissions received. ELP Amby Schmidt submitted a tender price of $239,758.52 plus HST. And Freightliner North Bay issued a tender at $230,294.53 and 53 cents plus HST. The tender delivery date is March 31st, 2022. Freightliner North Bay submission is the lowest bid. However, submission did not meet the requirements and specifications outlined in the tender. ELP Abby Schmidt's submission meets the requirements and specifications as outlined in the tender and offers a delivery date of December 2021. The purchase of the truck will also be drawn from the roads equipment reserves authorized by council resolution on May 3rd, 2021, regular council meeting. Thank you.
All right, through you, through me, I guess. ELP Inc., Mr. LeBlanc, what kind of brand of truck is that? Is that the brand name of the truck? Like, I just.
That's who will be supplying the truck, and it is also a Freightliner brand.
So it's basically the same vehicle? Both quotes were the same vehicle?
The ELP vehicle is actually smaller, a bit smaller than the Freightliner from North Bay. They submitted a truck that was the next size up. Now this truck is for the village of South Lancaster and Williamstown. So we needed something a little smaller, not your usual larger vehicle.
Yeah, and sooner than later, as for my memory of our roads tour. Are there any other questions of members of council? Councillor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, through you. And thanks for kind of partially answering my question. I was, because just looking at the prices here, I wasn't sure if I remembered that this is the two axle with the duals, like a 5-ton truck that we were using to do the smaller streets. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. Because if you were to look just at the prices, it would be better to go with a full-size truck. But I guess from what I remember of the tour, we do need a small truck for some of our smaller roads. So, all right, I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Any other members of council? Seeing none, I have a quick supplement, Mr. LeBlanc. This truck is an automatic, has an automatic transmission?
That's correct.
Okay, that's the only other question I had. Seeing no other questions, moved by Martin Lang, second by Stephanie Jaworski, be it resolved that staff report 99-2021 be received and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry award procurement 10-2021 for the purchase of a single axle 4x4 truck complete with box and plow harness to ELP Inc., AB Schmidt, as per their submission of $239,758 and 52 cents plus HST. And furthermore, the deputy mayor and clerk be authorized to sign any relevant documents. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you for your report, Mr. LeBlanc. Okay, so I apologize. I just have to go back to the start of the agenda to see where we are at. Moving on to other business. This is the portion where the sign is at, Mrs. Compo. I just want to make sure.
Yes, that's correct. In other business, our first item is the community signage discussion, followed by the draft art policy.
Thank you very much. So, council, I'm not sure if you've seen, but the other day, the township, our staff shared on Facebook our new vision for our signage, encouraging communities to submit if they would like to, and that would be phased in over a 3 to 4 year period. I would like it with your support that we advance this project and put it as a priority so that we can get our signage updated a lot sooner. Again, I put the caveat out there that we don't want to force any of the communities that have existing signage that they've paid for and lobbied for. But if there's any other community that would like to, complete with the circle and the design, we're welcome to it, but I would like to see these signs put out sooner than later. We have available funds to do it, and I think that it would set a nice be a nice refresh. You know, we'll get our branding out. We worked hard, took a long time to get it approved, and it would be nice to see it roll out in one fell swoop as opposed to over a couple of years. And I open it up to further discussion. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I agree 100%. I don't necessarily think we need to force feed them down the community's throats. Say Williamstown is an example, which just recently put up new signs, but there are some tougher looking signs in the municipality, and that really should be replaced. I'm all for doing them as quick as possible with the funds we have available for this project, and it has taken a long time to get there, but we're finally here, so let's get them done. And I'd like to see one in Bridget.
I knew that comment was coming. Councillor Lang and then Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, through you. Yeah, I'll speak in favor of it as well, although I assume that it'll come back as a staff report with a total dollar figure at the end before we give final approval, but I approve getting staff working on this, and let's see how many signs we do need to change. Let's get the numbers and find out what it would cost us. And if we can do this, it doesn't make sense to drag it out for 3 or 4 years. And, let's get it done.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor Warden. I would very much like to know what this might cost. I'm not saying I'm against it, but I would like very much to understand what sort of price tag would be associated with this. It's probably a nice thing to do at this point if we do have additional funds, but I think it's important, important to mention at least what my recollection of the project was, is that this started off as just coming up with a template so that when communities wanted to update their signs, that we sort of had a template that we had to follow, and it sort of morphed into now something that we were suggesting we'd be doing over 3 to 4 years, and now we're looking at it as let's just do it all in one fell swoop. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing that this sort of vision has changed, but I think my final feel for this will depend a lot on the cost. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So staff, if you could indulge us with a further report as to the costs, it would be greatly appreciated. CAO Mills, did you want to say something?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, thank you. A couple of things. So related to the strategic plan, one on our economic development with goal 1 is a branding strategy. And, for example, when you're going down the 401 or in your key areas where you see the Welcome to South Glengarry signs, they're kind of striking, and they stand out. The other is internal and external communication. Obviously, this is external, where people are often wondering when they're going through the municipality where they are, and to have the signage up and ready to roll would be good. The last thing I would mention is that we'll have a staff report as soon as we can with estimated costs. Another thing I would like to perhaps put in front of council is we were at a few of us were at Glen Walter Park for the tree presentation on Monday evening, and we were noting the signage there, for example, where directing towards Glen Walter Park, it's in the wrong spot and the sign's really old. So is that something we're looking at? As well as with parks, that you may be looking for some addendums or add-ons to what is already there?
I would say yes. I would like to see what it would cost to do everything. A lot of those signs in almost every park in the municipality are very old, so it would be okay. I think it would be good to have that information so that if council chooses to go all the way, we'll just be able to make that decision knowing the numbers.
Thank you.
Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I'd agree. I'd like to see what the cost would be. I don't necessarily say I would want to stand right now, but there are definitely some park signs in that really do need a facelift. Walter, when I was with you that evening, and for one, it's in the wrong place now, and it would definitely need a new sign there. Some of them are getting harder to read, but some of them are recent replacements that could be put on the back burner.
Okay, thank you. You were hard to hear at that that last little section, but I think we got the gist of what you said. Okay, thank you, Councillor Lang, and then Councillor Jaworski.
Councillor Jaworski had her hand up before me, if that's,
Sorry.
or I don't want to butt in, but.
Go ahead, Martin.
I'll go ahead. Just a point for staff to maybe consider is to go to the supplier. If we are considering this, we maybe can get a deal if we're doing 30, 20, 50 sign, whatever the number comes out, instead of doing 6 signs every, year, 6 months, we might get a deal by doing a big bunch and they can do them all at once.
I like that. Councillor Jaworski, I apologize. I didn't see your hand up.
That's okay. Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor Warden. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to add some of those other signs to this list. I mean, I think at a minimum, we need to have a really good inventory of where the signs are so that, depending on how this works out in terms of costing, that we can, go ahead with that. And I think Councillor Lang's point there makes a lot of sense about if we can do a certain amount sort of quote unquote in bulk, and then even if it means maybe finalizing some of the details, maybe after having committed to the larger purchase, that might make sense as well. So something to investigate. But I also want to touch on something that CAO Mills said about the major signs, the big signs along the 401, that I don't think from a branding perspective that they really necessarily match these smaller hamlet signs. So I don't know if I'm.
I can speak to that.
Yeah.
That was an issue that came up in the last term, and we were given, it kind of fit with the older branding that was still at the time. And it was council decided at the time. So it was before this latest style was chosen, definitely.
Okay. Well, and again, I think it's just make sure we have those on the list, make sure that we have their sizes, just so that, again, having that inventory of these assets so that if and the time comes, we know what we're dealing with. Thank you.
Couldn't agree with you more. Thank you very much. All righty. So thanks for that discussion. I certainly appreciate it. And I am looking forward to having further information for us at a later meeting. Committee reports.
Sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor, we do have one other item in other business, which is the discussion on the draft public art policy.
Okay, that's where that goes. Okay, that's myself again. Just please give me a second to go to the proper page. Yes, so thank you very much, Ms. Baggs, for this report. I really like the concept of it, and I am looking forward to this coming back. Lots of small villages and towns, I feel, have jumped on this bandwagon, and I was out in, I want to say it was near the Ottawa River, and there was a silo painted that it was just striking. It was very, very, really, really neat. Not saying that we'll be going to that level, but I would like to see some sort of a formal policy, and maybe if a process to if a business wants to have a side of their building painted or something, some sort of formal process. I would like to see something in this effect come forward. Any other questions or comments of members of council? Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, through you. Yeah, in reading it, there was one thing I wasn't sure about in there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it right away. And that was on, here it is, I think, that it's going to be on a first come, first served basis. But then it also had said that there would be a public art team that would determine if the pieces were appropriate. Are we looking to do both? As long as they're appropriate, it's first come, first served basis. I wasn't sure if it was one or the other of that.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Bags. My apologies. I'm looking at that, what he spoke about.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, thank you for asking that, Councillor Lang. Yes, that's kind of the crux of the of the policy right now. I just have to say right off the bat that this is one of like a passion project for me. I love including art in all things, and I think it makes people feel good. It encourages participation and engagement. And now that we have this brand new office space with all these blank walls, it's the perfect opportunity to display work and to get people through the new office to actually take a look. That is where the decision for who gets to display at any given time kind of comes up. So there's two different ways to do it. We could do a first come, first serve basis. I'm anticipating quite a lot of participation just based on the other programs that we've recently run over the last few years. There's a lot of really talented people and really great artists in our community. So I'm expecting quite a bit of uptake. Or we could have an art committee, they would fill out a form, submissions would be made all online, and then the committee would review the artwork and determine if it fits best and what goes with what, almost like an exhibition. And then we would rotate out again every 6 months to a year, depending on what you think. So I'm looking for feedback on that part.
Okay, I just wasn't sure because it was just kind of listed in, and if anybody's wondering where I am, it was 5.4. And then it was 6.2 with it, which was saying that it would be no formal selection process. It would just, so are you looking for a one or the other, or are you looking to kind of combine? I guess there'll have to be something. It can't just be all first come, first served. If there was something that was very inappropriate and shouldn't be displayed, like, I don't know who makes those decisions, hopefully not me, but so I just wasn't sure where you were going there, but I'm open to whatever everybody wants to do.
All righty, any other discussion on the, seeing none, all righty. So moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Sam McDonnell, be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry accepts the items presented on the agenda as committee reports and for information only. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Ms. Bags. Moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Martin Lang, be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry convene to close session at 8:37 p.m. to discuss the following item under section 239(2) of the Municipal Act, SO 2001. 2A, a meeting of part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. I'd like to thank members of the public for attending this meeting, and we'll be back to wrap up the meeting.